So thank you to Wes and Georgine, the owners of Upsize Magazine, and also to Rick Brimacombe from Club E and Rick Brimacombe and Associates, who in a couple of weeks will be hosting. We gave him the afternoon off to enjoy a lunch here, but he's a longtime partner and with Upsize, and he does a lot of these type of panel events, and the next one will be October 5th, utilizing Board of Directors. Moving on, and so thank you to Ray. Let's give a hand to Ray, please. I'll introduce our experts here. First, we'll start at the back of the alphabet. Dean Willer, attorney, focused on several areas, including business and corporate law at Winthrop and Weinstein. Winthrop and Weinstein is our presenting sponsor for the event. They hosted the private event that we did about 5 weeks ago, during which each of these experts met with the panelists for the first time to discuss their growth challenge. At the other end of the table, John Cassens, Director of Business Development with DS&B CPAs and Business Advisors, where he provides business owners and management teams guidance on improving their financial reporting. Next to John, we have Melissa Johnston, business banker at Highland Bank, where she's more than a decade of business banking experience with expertise in lending to small companies, local entrepreneurs, real estate developers, medical practices, and nonprofits. And she also reminded me last week that I should write a script. Thank you for that. And then Dan Moshe, founder of Tech Guru, where he helps business owners in the area business owners with all things tech related. So let's have a hand for our panelists. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. I'll step off the stage and welcome our Growth Challenge winners for the year. First, Brian Anderson, president of Data Trek. He's trying to raise money to take a fast-growing startup from its infancy into 20 markets, and he also runs Anderson Cargo, a local freight logistics and warehousing company. Also, Greg Hennis, president of Hennis Art Company, a corporate art consulting company trying to find a customer service management program that will automate some of his manual processes, while he's also got the nice problem to have of managing a backlog of clients who want to engage his services. With that, congratulations to the two of you, and thank you for taking the Growth Challenge. Brian, you are up first. Let's hear a little bit more about what you're up to.
Hello, everybody. I'm Brian Anderson, the founder of Data Trek, which is a kind of a service company dedicated to the IT world. And we focus in on assisting moving of physical assets, servers, routers, switches, from one data center to another. It's kind of a unique niche market. It's growing exponentially with the number of data centers and co-location facilities that are going up around the country. And there's still about 85% of small businesses have their computers in what we would call a closet. And so we hear horror stories of, well, we just asked who had a car and we threw the servers in the back of them and they transported them down the road. We've taken probably a decade of experience in my other company to learn how to facilitate this process. And we've designed some custom containers that facilitate a number of different things. But this is a high-risk endeavor. You've got your entire company at stake. You've got your clients. You've got your software. You got your back end. The stress of the people that we're dealing with is just, they're freaking out, because if you have a data breach or if you're under the guise of having to protect your data for PHI, PII, SII, and any other acronym you can think of, security, after hours, late night, speed. There's just a ton of variables, and we manage it all. So we launched at the beginning of the year, 2017. We're fully operational. We've got our website up, and we've done about 110 physical migrations all over the United States. So we got up and going. When we started, our focus was $700,000 in sales, and it was a very technical number that we grabbed out of the air. And while we're not there yet, with a number of the projects that we've got outstanding, is a possibility we might meet it yet. So hired a full-time branding and marketing and sales manager, Adam, my friend who wears many hats, and got our website up, and we're moving ahead with different marketing strategies. But why we're here is we were looking at this unique niche, and it's definitely a national thing. And from our investigative efforts, nobody really owns the market. It's kind of like FedEx in the early days. They created the overnight shipping market. And we feel that we have an opportunity to brand and own that space on a national basis, because somebody is moving this today. Some competitor, whether it's a United Van Lines or a freight broker or somebody, is moving this equipment. But they're doing it in, here, let me take your $60,000 server and I'll wrap it up and put some pads around it. And incidents happen. We've seen them, dropped off the back end of a truck and all sorts of horror related stuff. So, but anyway, we figured we could be in the market. We've designed some intellectual property, which is essentially a crate, but it's very versatile and very flexible, and you can put all different types of things in them, but provides security. But the idea was we needed to be in about 15 to 20 different markets. And while we're growing organically, we don't have the experience or the knowledge on how to go out into the world and raise money to put ourselves in those markets. So that's why we joined the challenge. I want to thank the panel. I didn't know any of them 6 or 8 weeks ago, and I've talked to all of them. I've met with them, had referrals, and a lot smarter than I was 8 weeks ago. So thank you very much. Our biggest obstacle is scaling up. At my table, we were talking about, franchises. Is that the route to go? And we don't think so, but an agency network or buying a portion of a local company and getting a look at their books and then doing a kind of a roll-up after you have them in place. Different strategies on how one might go about that. So, but it takes a fair amount of money and a lot more planning. Some of the lessons that we've learned in the challenge is try to stay focused, because it's very easy to get pulled in different directions and to move you off task. And then we have, physical things like hurricanes that just disrupt the transportation system like you can't imagine unless you're in it. And then the next thing is you get sales. Don't forget about sales. I've seen a lot of good ideas and a lot of startups, great ideas that were fabulous, solved a ton of problems, and they couldn't sell one. So we're selling and being well received in the market. And, in 6 to 8 weeks is not a lot of time to become an expert financier or agency developer or build a marketing plan for a 20-city network. But we've made a lot of progress in different areas, from thanks to Mr. Brimcombe, kind of the Guy Kawasaki approach to how do you kind of present a deck or your business, and with Melissa on some financing, different options on whether it's venture capital or whether it's equity investors or actually bank loans. So we've made a lot of progress in that regard, and that's kind of who we are. And it's very dynamic, and it happens, and it's on, and we're really enjoying some good success, and we want to take it out into the world. So if you have any questions, that's my deal.
Good start. Brian? We'll open it up to the audience for questions if you have any. I think, Rick?
So Dan, you're the closest to the technology world. When you look at some of your clients when they're moving and creating new facilities and so forth, how do you see them solving the problem that Brian is solving?
Thanks, Rick. So with the move to the cloud, more and more infrastructure, like Brian said, is being housed in these high-tech new facilities that are being built all the time. And frankly, having the ability to have a trusted vendor that understands and knows the complexity and the sensitivity of this type of equipment, I think gives people and businesses and IT managers more confidence to be able to put their equipment where they know it should be and get it, in some cases, to a better facility even than they're already in. So I got to say, like, I felt like this is a valuable opportunity in the marketplace, a needed thing in the marketplace, and an opportunity for people who work with and work on data centers to partner with Brian to help their clients get their equipment where it needs to be and when it needs to be there, and help them get more, even more value out of this equipment, because sometimes they may be faced with upgrading, but in fact, or buying new equipment, but in fact, it might be just a better fit to reallocate some of the equipment they already have. So it can be really a value add.
Yeah, some of these things are huge projects, and there's a lot of involvement. And it's funny that they'll spend 6 months in planning, and then they'll get to the day that they're gonna, well, how are we gonna move it? And literally, they just blow right over it. They totally forget about it. And Adam, I don't know what the source you had was saying, but about 30 or 40% of moves that don't happen when they're going to move into a co-location facility is related to the physical move of these assets, because it just, they panic. So
Brian, you were doing some of this work with your other company, correct? Anderson Cargo. At what point was there an aha moment, or a point at which you decided that this was an area of the business that warranted spinning off into its own company?
Oh, I don't know if there was a really aha moment, but a real exciting moment was when one of our major customers came to us with a plan, and about 6 different people within the organization were saying, "Hey, did you hear about this big move? Did you hear about this big move?" And it happened over a course of 6 months where we met every week, but then it happened over the course of 3 separate days where we were utilizing these containers that we designed and putting them into a market and chartering aircraft. And by the time we were done, it was a couple $100,000. So there's serious money and a lot of attention, and we just said we got to do this.
What are your insurance requirements, and how are you dealing with the insurance companies that don't know how to insure this, I'm guessing?
I knew we were going to get this
Wing it.
Well, if it was up to Adam, we probably would. But I'm a little leery of these things. Actually, we spent about 6 months with our insurance agent, and we've actually come up with the ability to insure the goods for full value. And full replacement value, you can't insure for the intrinsic value of the content, but for the physical value, I think the biggest one was been a couple million.
what's available
So valuing it is, it's not.
Yeah, but the trust factor then is, so your brand is going to be highly important because you're going to have that trust factor. You can't insure that.
Yes, and if you look at your own insurance policies, if you're moving used goods that don't happen to be packaged and you want, coverage for several $1 million, that's a loophole that they won't cover it. So we have the ability to offer that, as well as additional security, and we've done armed guards, we've done backup vehicles, and all sorts of other things.
Is your container design, do you hold the patent on that? And is that something that you could possibly, as part of maybe your franchise situation, you sell that design to other folks, teach them how to use it and get a residual that way?
I spent about a half a day with a patent attorney on that very subject, and it's a beautiful crate. It's got sliding, shelves. Unless you put it all together as a use patent, and by the time you got done, it was going to be a couple $100,000, and then you were going to have to pay somebody to try to be watch out for patent infringement, and then you were going to pay them to sue them. We figured we'd just utilize the device without publicly putting it out into the marketplace. It doesn't distinguish us, but it is what we've developed to enhance the process and make it go much faster.
You mentioned you were interested in opening in 17 markets, I believe. What's the capital requirement for a new market?
As far as what it would cost to open up in a new market? It depends on the market, but just for example, Dallas, Chicago, out in the Virginia area, San Francisco, they're mostly major market cities, so it's relatively high. The cost of the containers to outfit, we'll call it a small operation, is probably $30,000. And then it's staffing and a small warehouse. But you could do that with an agency type of partnership and maybe a licensing agreement. There's a number of different ways to approach it, but you got to be looking at probably $150,000, $250,000.
So, okay, there's a question.
So you've had this great opportunity to meet with all these business people to give you advice. What is your biggest aha moment that you got from being able to work with them?
Well, the personal biggest aha was that I had an idea and I kind of got nods that, hey, that's a pretty good idea. But actually each one of them in their own disciplines have, given me insights that I wouldn't have had otherwise. It's I didn't know any of them to begin with, but it's a pretty good group. And if you're lucky enough to be in the position that Greg and I have been in to be able to network with them, it's been a great learning experience.
So let's bring the experts into the table, into the discussion now. We'll start with John. What stands out to you here? What are your thoughts on his plans?
Well, I think the opportunity to have really a whole bunch of different options on how to go about this garnering different networks and getting into those different cities and whatnot, I think is really unique. You talk to the cost of going in. They may be relatively high if you're looking for a standalone location, getting people in there, getting a office there and whatnot. But the opportunity there is as well is, hey, look at U-Haul. They partner with many different businesses to stick their sign out there, and you come and get their crates, or you have one person that's there for U-Haul. So that cost of going in would be relatively low, and that's a different revenue stream than having a standalone location would be there. So the opportunities there are big and diverse, which I think is a unique opportunity.
Melissa, Is this a traditional banking financial idea, or are there other forms of financing that would work for this? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think this is absolutely a financeable idea. Greg and I met, Brian and I met separately and talked about that, and it's also an opportunity for him to seek capital in the ways that he described, from angel investors, private equity, venture capital. There's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines right now, and lots of folks looking to invest in good ideas with a track record. So Brian is definitely positioned well for that. One thing that he pointed out that I want to reiterate is the niche. I think as we met as a group, what we really focus on is the fact that he's had a niche and he's learned how to really capitalize on that transferring of data equipment. I mean, not trying to be all things to all people. You have medical supplies, let's move that. You have furniture, let's move that. It's like, no, let's use DataTrek to focus specifically on data equipment. And that's been a really nice way to grow the company. It was sort of funny when Brian and I got together, we sat down, we went through some financial information, and then I said the thing that a lot of entrepreneurs don't like to hear, which is, what's your plan? Where's your business plan? Well, I don't really have a business plan yet. I've got lots of good ideas. So that was one thing where we were really talking about, like Rick pointed out as well, when you go to investors and go to folks that you're trying to get money from, I mean, having a good idea and a little bit of a track record is helpful, for sure, but more than half of that is going to be, they're going to want to know what's the plan. Put something down in paper and show us kind of your best case scenario, worst case scenario, middle of the road, what do you think you can achieve? And they know that it's going to be flexible. There's going to be some flow to that plan, but to really delve into, a presentation format where this is what I'm looking to do, this is how I'm going to grow, and then the money will follow that plan. So.
Dan, at the private meeting earlier, you talked a little bit about the niche that your company has started to focus on, how you really narrow down your customer base, and I was wondering if you might share some of those thoughts with the audience on how it relates to Brian's company.
Yeah, thanks. I agree that I like the niche concept, and so over the course of the past 13 years, Tech Guru has evolved from a company that served pretty much anybody with a computer to now then just businesses, then just businesses on an ongoing basis. And now we're focusing just on CPA firms. And what that enables us to do and Brian to do by figuring out this niche is to really understand the customer. And I got to say, I don't know how Brian did it. He understands how us techie people think. He knows and has figured out that we want it right now. We want to just have it work the first time and not have to mess around with it, especially if it's something as analog as boxes and trucks and moving stuff. We just don't want to have to think about it. And he also just nailed the fact that, we don't want to waste a bunch of time gathering quotes and estimates and waiting a week and a half for an estimate. And he has streamlined his the front end of that process in his business so well that he can turn a quote around for his clients in less than a day or same day.
Sometimes it's a matter of hours.
Instant. And that's what us techie people love. We like instant gratification right now. And waiting around a week for a quote is we don't have time for that. So I think as one thing I talked to Brian about was engaging kind of a strategic branding expert like we have to go even further and then better understand the market and how these people that deal with data centers and servers, how do they think, what are their fears, what keeps them up at night, and even what kind of words do they use, and then how do they go about finding these types of services. Brian set up a beautiful website for his company, but it's not coming up organically on Google if you search for data center migrations, at least not, I don't think on the first page. So we talked about ways how do IT people me, they go around finding services like that, and some of it to some extent is word of mouth, and and referrals from a trusted partner, especially with something as sensitive as moving, millions of dollars of, electronic equipment. And so we talked about how in Tech Guru, there's about 2 searches a month for CPA IT services. So we're also having to, quote unquote, create a market. And so search engine advertising isn't really the way for us to go. And then there's tools online that I mentioned to Brian about how he can search or find out how many people are searching for data center moving services to see if an investment in online search strategy might be a way to help him go to market. Thanks.
Yeah, so I don't know that much about the law, so I tend to just give unsolicited advice.
He's the lawyer.
Yeah. So this was really cool opportunity because one of the things, the best compliments that I think a business owner can achieve is, wow, that's a phenomenal idea. I can't believe nobody else thought about it, right?
Yeah.
And when you think about, I have a lot of clients that operate in the same space that you guys are in, or have enormous investments in the tech side, and moving. I never even thought about what it would mean for them to move the kind of logistics things they have either into a data center or from one location to another, or moving a backup data center from one location to another. All these things, I didn't even think about it till you were there, but it's a big deal because it's a lot of value, and downtime is impossible. If your office chair doesn't show up on Monday when you're at work, you can probably stand for the most part, right? But if you can't log into your computer, I've never seen a more irritated group of people than people that can't get their email immediately when they walk in, right? Me included. In fact, my profession may be the worst because we're troglodytes, but we want it all right now, right? And so it's just like a perfect idea. It was a great idea. My primary advice to Brian was pick a customer. To start, because in my personal opinion, if you're, if you want to go after the big companies that are going to do this, right, and that's your primary customer, I think you have one go-to-market strategy. If you want to go after, the SMB space, where SEO matters, right? Whether it's going to be harder to get to those people, a different strategy may be relevant. So you may go, if you're gonna be in a larger space, you may know the players, right? So you could literally have direct to sales reps go talk to these people. If you're going to be more in the SMB space, then physical presence in the market matters more, logistics matters more, and it's harder to reach all those people. So, we talked about different strategies at the lower end, like, networking with commercial real estate brokers who know when people's leases are going to expire and contacting them directly. But, my advice, and I think it still stands, is, decide, because of where you are and that you don't have a $500 million investment to go do this everywhere, decide, do I want to go to the big boys first and then work down, or the little boys first and work up, and end up with a situation where you can then target your resources to try to most advantageously attack the market, because from there your business plan follows, your financing plan follows, and you can take it off.
Yeah, I think we're finding most success in either like the consultants in the industry that are advising people on data center operations, and where they want to have their backup locations and whatever, because they're touching a bunch of people that are doing this. And then also in the bars that are selling equipment into we sold it, you sold it to us, now we need to move it. Help us move it from wherever to wherever, and they were very uncomfortable doing it because of the insurance risk, and it's like $2 million, and like you're just going to ship it like that, and so that seems to be where we're getting the most traction.
Great, we've got about 1 minute left. Brian, real quick, what's the biggest challenge you faced with this new venture, and how have you solved it?
The biggest challenge we've had is these hurricanes that are hitting Texas and Florida and now coming in again. We've seen our cost go up 50, double, triple, and we've got fixed rate contracts. We've got bids outstanding. And we've had to go back to some of the bigger, we've got a $80,000 migration out of San Francisco, and we had to go back to them and tell them, look, the whole dynamic has changed, and we're going to have to rebid this quote based on whatever the circumstances are whenever you decide to do it, because it's kind of a fluid thing. So we've had to reach out and give them bad news. We didn't particularly like it, but when your costs go up, I mean, I've got contracts in place that I can't raise their pricing until the first of the year, and my costs doubled and tripled. So it's been very stressful.
All right, well, best of luck with that, and thank you for taking the challenge.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Now we welcome to the stage Greg Hennis. Let's hear about your growth challenge.
My business is called Hennis Art Company, and we basically provide art consulting services to corporations, hotels, any kind of a commercial setting that needs artwork, mirrors, framing, etc. I had a previous company that I grew for about 20 years and sold about 7 years ago. We built it up to about 8 million in revenue, and decided I was going to just kind of take it easy, work out of the house, do some consulting, and not have the overhead, not have the employees, all of that again. And that's when I started the new business. As we kept getting busier and busier and busier, I had to hire that first employee, which made me take on my first small showroom, which made me have to hire my second employee, which made us have to move our showroom. And we moved 5 times in the last 5 years. Recently into a 11,000 square foot showroom. We've hired 4 new people just in the last month alone. So things are busy. The economy's good. We've shifted our focus into where people are buying art, which is more assisted living, hospitality, multifamily housing, you name it. So my 2 challenges that I had were, I just need more help. All I have done is, for the last 7 years, is answer the phone. I have done no marketing, no advertising, no salespeople, just me. And as we've been growing and growing, we are managing more and more projects, and I'm just not getting to the projects I even know about. So that was the need to hire my first salesperson, which I did kicking and screaming. And nothing personal, Alex. I wasn't going to go there. And then the second thing is our processes are very manual. Basically, we don't have a catalog that you can choose from, because no matter what you want, we can get it. Any print, poster, original, framed any way you want. A good way to kind of quantify our situation is, in my previous company, we hired a national IT firm to create a framing software to basically frame a piece of artwork. And they couldn't do it after spending $125,000 on consulting fees. And they actually designed the software to put a Bell helicopter together, and they could not figure out how to frame a piece of art. So because there's millions of choices of the artwork you can get, how you can frame it, what size you can do it. Now everything's print on demand. So where it used to be, do you want the 24 by 36 or do you want the 30 by 40? Now it's, do you want the 25 and a half by 35 and a half? And it's infinite. So we basically do all of the sourcing, presentation, framing design, proposal, delivery, installation, all the way down to the end. And most of our clients, it's all web-based or email-based. So we're emailing back and forth and making the selections and the processes. I've met with 5 different web design firms to try to come up with a solution to make this more web-based, and no one's been able to accomplish it yet. So that's my second challenge. The opportunity is amazing. I mean, the ability for us to fairly aggressively grow the company more nationally, which is now of interest to me again. I kind of decided, okay, things are going well. Might as well keep moving this direction. Is what's really a technology play as much as anything, to be able to make that process smoother and easier for people. Couple little things that I had learned over the last few years. One being somebody told me about 6-7 years ago that if you basically take all your processes and procedures and you adapt them to your best, most profitable, ideal client, you will get more clients like that, or they will your existing clients will adapt, or they'll go away, which is a good thing if they're not adapting to the systems that you have in place that make you profitable and efficient. So that's really what we're trying to do. Is we know what that process is now. We know what it would take. We just are having trouble with the technology side of it. It's still very labor intensive. Another way to look at this is I did some research years ago when I was looking at raising money, and the largest, the art and framing business is about a $16 billion industry. The largest player in the world has 0.1% market share, and it's owned by Warren Buffett. So they haven't figured it out either. So it's really a big challenge. I have since I met with the group, one of the things we identified early on is we're losing opportunities. You need to get somebody in there right away. So that is what I did. I was in the process of looking at people. Alex, who's sitting in the front here, is my newest addition to the family. He started a couple weeks ago, basically doing business development, senior account management, looking at our opportunities that I was not able to get to, and kind of bringing them to the forefront. So that was a great addition. Now when the rain starts coming in, it'll be fun to see how we can process it all. But and then on the second challenge, I did, like I said, met with 4 or 5 different IT consulting firms. Everyone has a little bit of a different spin on it, how to do this. I also met with Dan, and we talked about a couple different ways and opportunities. Haven't really been able to get too deep into it, but he's definitely given me some great ideas on trying to basically find a related industry or even an unrelated industry that has a similar process that's already kind of solved this problem and use their technology platform to kind of integrate in sideways. So I think if there's anything else. I can't read my notes because I don't have my glasses on, so I'm going to have to put those on. The other thing is that I'm a little hesitant on the technology piece is one of my 2 biggest competitors in town are a former employee and my former company. And they both use a platform that we developed 17 years ago, their websites. If you go on their websites and you log in, I actually designed that 17 years ago, and they're still using it. And what the customers like, the interface of the selection process. What they don't know is on the back end, the labor that's going into that. Every single piece of art that's in there to select from, somebody had to spend 15 minutes uploading all the information, taking the photo. And so I don't want to do that either. That's going backwards. I might as well just do it the way I'm doing it. So. I think that's good.
Any questions from the audience? So Greg, this was basically version 2.0 for you. What were the main things that you learned in 1.0 that you took to 2.0?
My former company is called Art Holdings. It was out on 394. We had a 26,000 square foot building. I had 60 employees. I did not want to do that again. And we grew it through a variety of avenues. I had companies merge into me. I bought companies. We started new divisions. We did a lot of different things. And the biggest thing I learned is to don't force it if it doesn't feel right, if it's not very organic. It's not an organic part of what you're already doing. I've kind of decided this time around I'm just going to really grow it organically. I don't want to acquire somebody. I don't want to take on any partners. I'm at a point in my life where I don't need that, and I don't want that. I want to do it at my pace. And when I first set out to the challenge of trying to make this easier before I took on a showroom and took on more employees, my task that I gave to the IT people was, I want to be able to run this from a laptop on a boat. Well, I can't do that anymore now, but I can still get the boat. I have the laptop, but it's definitely, we've jumped in a little bit further than I had originally planned. But it's fun. I like doing it.
So you seemed ready to, as you say, work on a boat. At what point did you kind of get, I guess, the hunger back to grow into a bigger company? What happened there that changed that mindset?
I like, as much as I like to sell art, I also like to buy art, and I like to show artwork. So I love working with artists, and so I had the opportunity to take on a small little showroom where I could store some inventory if I bought it, do some little shows for some people, and that, unfortunately, good or bad, led me to growing the business further, where I had to add some people, and then it just kind of grew back to where it was. So, and I'm okay with that.
Other questions? What has been the biggest challenge or the roughest day you've faced, and how have you dealt with it?
Probably recently, we're working on a project. We do a lot of mirrors too, because it's a framed thing hanging on the wall. And we were working on a project where these mirrors are just massive. They're like 48 by 114, and they weigh about 150 pounds. And we tried to talk the construction company, the designer, the owner, everybody out of doing them this big. They said they're ridiculous to handle. And in the midst of having them saying, nope, you're supplying them, you're doing it, we had a pallet of glass being delivered that fell on the delivery person and crushed their legs. This was about a month ago. And this was the same day I'm talking to the construction people, trying to figure out how we're even going to get these things in the building, because they don't fit on their lifts, they don't go in their elevators. And it was just a very, very stressful time where, it's the biggest lesson learned on that one is, don't do it just because somebody wants you to do it. If you can't do it, just don't do it. So, but he's okay now. It wasn't on my workman's comp.
Other questions? All right. We'll turn it over to the experts again. We'll start with Dean this time.
Thank you. Great, nice to see you again. This is the first time somebody's brought a show and tell to the event since I've been there. It's nice to see that you actually did what you said you were going to do, which is cool. I had a chance to speak with Alex today, and that was great. In all fairness, in all candor, it's really nice to see you guys following through on what your goals are, because that's really, I think, why we're here. You had some advice, and to see you pull through, so it was really great to see that. I agreed at the time when we met with Dan that if you can find somebody else that's already built it, that's probably a lot cheaper than building it on your own. Or if you can figure out a way to spread the cost, that'd be great. So I don't have any additional thoughts on that topic, but I'm glad to see you guys are going down that direction. But other than that, I'm just impressed to see your growth story continues to grow, and that you're doing something you really enjoy, even if on land.
Thank you.
Dan, previous meeting, you talked a little bit about going out and trying to find some technology that already existed to help them out with this growth plan. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, thank you. I've been involved in multiple projects where it's just it's obvious that a technology play is going to help transform a business. And I've even gotten involved in projects where there's already a development partnership in place and statements of work have been signed. And I've even said in those cases, like, okay, hold up, let's do an exhaustive search to see what else just might happen to be out there that could work and get us to 80%. Because let's be honest, even with your own custom software development, getting to 80% can be extremely expensive, even for software that seems, and it always seems simple until you pull it back and realize there's a lot of complexity involved. And so the places that I've helped my clients look for, kind of unusual places, I've actually dug through trade show exhibitor lists to see which companies are exhibiting at trade shows and find potential software partners. We've looked at, and when Greg and I had lunch, We talked about, is there some kind of a Pinterest for business that could be a branded, like, custom version of Pinterest that maybe we could use. We talked about looking at, like I said, adjacent industries that have the same kind of built-to-order concept. I was working with a company that sells stone, and they do a very similar selling process because every piece of stone is unique. It can be cut to every possible shape and size, and there's about 10 different types of finishes that can go on top, and different types of bevels and cuts as well. So the thing that I wanted to impress on everyone is that, you're not alone, right? Somebody else has probably come across a similar business problem, and then it's up to us entrepreneurs to see if we can apply a little bit of creativity and see something that is for stone, but actually could apply really well with some tweaks for our own business. And I think that's what makes kind of entrepreneurs special, is that we can can make connections that otherwise really aren't obvious.
Melissa, the same question as before. What's the financeability, either traditional or in non-traditional formats for Greg's growth journey?
Sure. Yeah, and I think for Greg, what I'll point out is he's made some really good choices in terms of how and when to grow his company. I mean, what we've seen is companies are either going down or going up, and sometimes that trajectory is more like a hockey stick, and the capitalization can be really tricky for those types of companies. But what Greg did after starting his company in 2010 is just make really good choices in terms of when to add to his team and how to manage that growth appropriately. So not getting into the numbers here, but talking to Greg about, what his revenue has been and sort of how he's grown his company. He's made some really good choices in that regard. That yes, I mean, there are some great opportunities available for Greg to add some capital, traditional bank financing or other sources, alternative lending, some asset-based type of financing as well. And I also want to point out the fact about hiring, because when we all sat together in the room, it was clear that he needed an account executive or business development officer, and with that short time frame between then and now, here he is. I mean, it's really great to see that and how he found that person, because again, hiring the right people on your team, the folks that are growing in a fast track of just hiring who they can hire and finding the people not necessarily are a good fit, and then you lose everything that you've sold in terms of your service offering. I mean, he's built his company and his following based on the service and how he delivers to his clients, and by adding people just to sort of fill the seats isn't a good solution. So Greg's.
And it's really tough out there finding anybody. If anyone's trying to hire, I mean, I used to, like, for framers or installers, I used to put an ad in Craigslist, and I'd have 50 responses the next day. I've had 3 ads in the last 6 months, and I've got a total of maybe 10 replies to all 3 ads. So it's really just networking and finding out who's out there looking for things and wants to make a change is how we found the people we've found. So, and the reason I hired Alex so quickly is because you guys told me I had to. So, so I had to come back with some results.
It's your homework.
Thank you for doing that.
You're fired.
Shameless plug for a story on hiring in the tight labor market. Pick up a copy of the Upsize magazine at your table. John, we've talked a little bit about strategies for adding the technology that Greg would like to add at the meeting last month. You weren't necessarily against adding the technology, but also cautioned on the human touch. Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Thanks for reading my mind too, Andy. That's right where I was going. So, getting some of the efficiencies is going to be a world of difference, from making sure you can take some of the manual pieces that are so time intensive. But really, I think the differentiator for the business is that personal touch, the ability to sift through the weeds that a client may not want to, as well as continue to have those touches with those decision makers, because if it's the construction on the front end, they're not going to stop with that one building. They're going to have 20 other developments that you want to be that one touch to. So yes, the technology is a must to make some of it easier. I still think at the end of the day, your business's differentiator is your eye and your personal touch.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from the expert panel? All right, any other questions from the audience? All right, Greg, you are dismissed. Thank you for
Thank you.
taking the...
Thanks for all your help. Appreciate it.
We have just a few minutes left. I think we might actually get out of here a couple minutes before 1, but we'll ask one last question of the panel. I know, Dean, you're on your way out for a meeting, so we'll start with you. What is one lesson you've learned from working with the many business owners you've worked with over the years?
It's a good question. You know, I guess, I don't know if it's really a lesson, but it's just amazing to me still that every time, you know, so I've been practicing law for 13 years, and my family has a background. We start a small business, and we deal with a lot of other small businesses, and it just always amazes me how innovative, creative, intelligent, risk-taking there still is. I mean, no matter what happens, there's still, you know, every year we meet, between 2 to 7 new businesses just through this alone, to say nothing of what we do in our practice and our clients and the people they work with. And it's just such an amazing thing that there's this much innovation that still occurs, and there's still this much risk taking. There's people like Greg and Brian that are willing to, you know, hire guys and create new things and be part of all of our lives. And you know, it's in my opinion, it's one of the group of people that are probably the most unsung heroes are people that start businesses, take risks, bring the rest of us along their way. So I guess I would just say thank you.
You. Dan, same question.
Right on. So I think the reason that both Brian and Greg have been so successful in their current endeavors and in their their past and current endeavors is they're just true to themselves. They understand what it means to have values and what their core values are, and surround themselves with people like that. And then what happens then is when you get a team of people that kind of have the same kind of life philosophy, I feel like then you can almost accomplish anything you put your mind to. And I feel like in my own endeavors is when I've had the right people around me that kind of get where we're headed. They see my crazy vision and then share those values together. That combines to just be this kind of unstoppable force. And the other thing I think that has made both Greg and Brian so successful is just this just unflinching focus on the customer and taking care of the customer and putting the customer first. And Brian is in the transportation business, but it's really the customer service company that just happens to move your technology. And I think the same goes for Greg in the art business. So thank you very much.
Great, yeah. So as a banker and doing small business lending for the past 15 years, I would say the biggest challenges that I see with my clients and folks I'm talking with are people and money. And they can sort of go together, but not necessarily. So as I mentioned before, Greg and Brian have figured this out, but just to reiterate of having the right people in the right seats and really building that rockstar culture within your company so that your brand is clear, everyone's working on the same page and efficient, and so just the culture component of your business. And EOS Traction has a model to follow on building that culture, but that's the takeaway that I would leave with, along with money. I like to say that on a sunshiny day, there's lenders out there that'll give you an umbrella, but once it starts raining, good luck finding an umbrella. So basically make sure that you have enough dry powder in your business or access to capital so that you can grow your business and do things for your company and not be stressed about the money.
Thank you, John.
Well, working with a lot of our closely held and small businesses and entrepreneurs, one of the biggest things that I always take away is the power of listening. If we could just get in a room and listen, as service providers, we're always driven to finding a solution. Well, first we need to get to the crux of what they're wanting to achieve. So to Greg's point, hey, I wanted to work on a boat with a laptop. okay, maybe not today or tomorrow, but how can we get you there? You know, that's one of the things you always want to get at the end of the day is achieving those things that matter the most to that entrepreneur. And that's all we strive for at the end of the day too. So I think both of you guys are doing a wonderful job. I think the growth that you guys have taken on and having a backlog of work is never something to not be happy of. So I'm excited to see where you guys go from here too. So
Thank you to our expert panelists, to our presenters, to Rick Runcombe again for getting this venue and for helping us out over the years, and thank you all for being here. Hope to see you again for Rick's next panel in early October.
Thank you, Andy.